there's a lecture portion and a lab portion. This is the first honors biology kind of core class you take. And so basically the lecture is going through the major evolutionary transitions of biomolecules to cells. So we talk about the origin of life, kind of the evolutionary theory behind that. We talk a little bit about the RNA world, which I think is fascinating. So we do get back in some molecular biology concepts that you covered in MCB, but we go more in depth and in recent studies on some of the concepts. So it's really exciting, up to date. We also talk about new techniques that are being used. So we talk about genomics. I like students to have a really good core, like fundamental background in bacterial as well as eukaryotic genomics, because I think this is very important in the future of biology as well as medical science. So we actually talk about personalized medicine as well. The more lecture portion, I think the most exciting part is that no matter what type of biology you're going to study, I think this class really is a great foundation, a jumping point. If you study ecology as well as animal, plant physiology, whatever, you need to know about biomolecules and just to understand the kind of the evolution of these concepts, the genetic material, the raw material, to really all these amazing phenotypes that you see and the environmental interactions. We talk about epigenomics a lot as well. So just to kind of understand and put together the pieces, no matter what type of biology you decide upon, it's just great to start with that core information. And you can use this beyond just the class. That's I think the great thing about the class.
In the early morning rain.
So in the lab, the first couple of weeks, we introduce the students to some basic molecular biology techniques such as DNA extraction, RNA extraction, and PCR. And the idea is this is preparing them to undertake a big independent project in which they are actually knocking down, using RNAi, expression of a gene of their choice within C. elegans. And so this project is completely student-driven. They get to pick their gene, pick their question, and understand the biology and functioning of this gene within the C. elegans system. I think the best part of the program and IB 270 is the fact that students get to have this opportunity to self-direct their learning. So especially in the lab, my main goal is to help you and guide you as students to answer your question of interest. Except for the first few introductory weeks, it's very hands-off and the students can discover and learn for themselves. So I think that really is the advantage of the honors program, is it's not some cookbook section where you're just going through labs. You get to explore science in a realistic fashion and actually go through the scientific process in a similar way that you might in a research lab.
One trip, this was later on in college, I went, the Grand Tetons. It's one of my favorite mountain ranges in Wyoming, and so just went on this loop weekend trip and got up about 4,000 feet. It was a really hard hike, and for the first campsite. And of course, like as soon as we put down our packs, a big mama black bear comes up and like seriously right on my pack, and I turned around because I was looking for a tent site. And I was just like, wow. And I heard about the bear. You can clap, you can do the basic things to spook it, but she just stared at me and she's like, no, I don't think so. She had cubs behind her and just backed up and just like ripped up like everything, and then just waiting, and then snow was coming down, keys, everything in the bag, and like my Nalgene bottle was like bit in half, and there's like water everywhere, and like food was like just thrashing, and then she was running after me a few times, and so I thought I was pretty much going to be dead, but it's pretty exciting. So that's how I got in science. I love nature, and I think it's good for biologists, scientists to go out and go out in nature once in a while, and just you kind of can lose yourself in a textbook, so it's good to get out and actually observe nature.
How I got into science really was via my dad. So he was an entomologist, and so growing up with him, you get exposed to nature all the time. And I think one of the most memorable situations of growing up with an entomologist dad is we were on safari in Kenya. And the nice thing about going on safari is that you can choose to have a guide or choose not to have a guide. But whichever choice you make, the cardinal rule is don't get out of the car. You have lions and other large, dangerous animals. And so go on around, enjoy the park, stay on the road, but don't get out. I have no idea to this day how he was able to notice this because he was driving, but he noticed that there was an ant colony crossing the road. And he was so excited. He was like, look at this, they're changing nest sites. And he stopped the car, got out the camera, and got my mother screaming at him at this point, like, what are you doing? Get in the car. And he's like videotaping this ant crossing the road. And and so he was just completely enthralled with this. And he was like, oh my goodness, isn't this fascinating? And I think that's really, to sum up my childhood, he was always interested in showing and making sure that you appreciate what's out there. And so that's kind of how I ended up kind of following in his footsteps and staying within entomology.